Hello, my name is Christopher Campbell. I'm a junior undergraduate here at Utah State University. As you know, Psi Chi is doing a research competition, and there are two different tiers or groups that you can be in. One being your own original research being presented, and the other one being you look up research that someone else has already done and presenting it as your own, which should help you to understand how to look up research, how to read and interpret data, and how to present research when you go to formal research competitions. And I'm going to show you how to do the second tier, which is where you are looking up other people's research. As you can see, I have a research article right here. The first thing I did was that I looked for something that I was pretty interested in, and for me it was caffeine. The thing about caffeine that interests me is that whenever I consume caffeine, I feel I feel different than when I don't have caffeine. It definitely does something to me. It definitely has an effect on me. And I wanted to see if there were any studies about the effects that caffeine have on people. And I found this one, which was the effects of caffeine on Navy SEALs while they're doing their Hell Week training. And the reason they did Hell Week training, they did during Hell Week, was because that's the time when they're all deprived of sleep, and they wanted to see what the effects of caffeine would be on sleep deprivation as well as a bunch of other stressors that Navy SEALs go into. And they wanted to see if they want to see if caffeine would actually help mitigate the effects that the sleep deprivation and stressful effects that Navy SEAL training has, especially during Hell Week. And so I'm going to show you a little bit around this study. Right here you have the abstract, and the abstract is basically a summary of the study as a whole. It's how you know if the study is going to be of interest to you. It talks to you about what they're measuring. It tells about a little bit about how they measured it. It talks a little bit about the results, but it does it in a very condensed way, and it's very summarized. The next part here is the introduction. And the introduction introduces everything. It introduces the concept of what you're about to be reading, and it introduces the discussion of why they it introduces the discussion about this specific topic, and it introduces why they want to do this particular study. Next you have methods and materials, and the first part is subjects, which is the subject is who or what the study is about, whether it's animals, whether it's humans, and what kind of animals, what kind of humans, how old the humans are. And when I say what kind of humans, what I mean here is that these are like what their demographic is. Right here, they're 68 male SEAL trainees, and it talks about their mean age being 23.9 plus or minus 3 years. And it talks about their weight being 77.3 plus or minus 8 kilograms. They want to keep things as constant as they can, and they want people to get the general idea of what type of people were actually in the treatment conditions. The general procedures right here talks about what it talks about what groups they were sorted into. It talks about at what times were they going to go into the treatment condition, when baseline was taken, and it goes over the general procedures. And then right here there are a bunch of different variables that they measured, a bunch of different conditions, and I'll go into that in a minute. After that, you have the results, and that's exactly what you would think it is. It's very intuitive. The results are just what came out of the study, what they found out of the study, and it's basically just the raw data. After the results, you have the discussion. Let me find the discussion right here, which is basically, it's the results, but it's how they interpret the results, and it's how the results stand according to previous studies that have been done. And I would say the discussion is the equivalent of discussion boards that you see on the internet of people just discussing various things. But the difference is that this is actually tested, and those discussion boards are usually just opinion that have no testing behind them. and it talks about each of the individual variables in the discussion. And after that, you have the conclusion, which ties everything together and talks about what they found as a whole. I guess it would be a little bit, it's a little bit like the abstract, but it's catered towards people who've read the entire study, and it wraps everything up so that you know exactly what you read. So we are going to go over to my PowerPoint. Right here it says the effects of caffeine, sleep loss, and stress on cognitive performance and mood during U.S. Navy SEAL training. If you look right here, that is exactly what I have. I also put the exact same authors right here. I did this because this isn't my study. This is someone else's study that they did, and I need to give them credit still, because it really wasn't, it's nothing I actually did. Here's the introduction. I put it in quotation marks because I felt that what they said was better than any way I could paraphrase that particular sentence. But I did paraphrase quite a bit of this, and I did quote quite a bit of it. The paraphrasing is really the way to go, but if you can't get around certain things, you can also use quotation marks. But it's very wise to make sure that you have the page number at the very end of each slide, so that those who see these slides can know where to look when they are reading the study, or they can know that you didn't get this from your own source, that this is actually someone else's work, and so it's not considered plagiarism. And I only did a little bit of the introduction. I only put in the points that I thought were very important, and that's pretty important because we have time commitments, we have time issues here. We can't go too far over time. And this introduction right here is pretty long, so I decided to narrow it down to just a few points. So right here I have methods and materials and subjects, and I just did a little bit of that. I didn't go very specifically into it. I'm sure I probably should. This PowerPoint probably does have a few flaws in it. I probably can go a little bit more specific into that. And again, I have the page numbers right here. The general procedures, I have it right here, the basics of what was said. And then one thing I did differently is that there is a lot of different testing procedures that they did in this study. There's a lot of different things that they tested, a lot of different dependent variables that they took out of this study. And I decided to just do a few tests, and that was right here, the cognitive tests. And it says 4 cognitive tests were administered on laptop computers right here. And I decided to just talk about the 4 cognitive tests rather than talking about every aspect of the study, because there really was a lot. And the reason I did this was for time again. I don't want to go over time, and I just want to present the information that I felt was important and that I felt was interesting. And there were quite a few interesting things here, but I want to put the most relevant information, or at least what I felt was the most relevant information in this. So I did that. And the first one right here is a scanning visual vigilance test. And one thing that you'll notice I did differently right here is on the next slide, I have the results. I decided to order it in this way because when I actually read the study, I had a hard time remembering what the scanning visual vigilance test was once I got down to the results. And I thought that for presentation purposes, it would actually be wiser to do the results right after I do the methods about the scanning visual vigilance test. And I did the same thing with the 4-choice visual reaction time test, as well as a matching to sample test, as well as a repeat acquisitions test. I did the results right there. If you look over here, there's a graph that there are several different graphs that talk about the percent change from baseline in the different testing procedures, whether it was visual vigilance, 4-choice, reaction time. And I decided to put that right here, which you can't really see it right there, but you can see it if I go to present right here on the show. It's loading real quick. You can see right here. I didn't talk about this or this. These are 2 different variables that I decided not to report. But the visual vigilance 4-choice reaction time test, matching to sample and repeat acquisition I decided to do those, and it talks about the percent change from baseline. You can see that the baseline is at the 100% mark, and then it talks about the change right here. And you can see that the correct responses in the matching to sample were actually increased by caffeine from the baseline level, which was when they were sleep deprived and they were tested in these things, but they didn't have any kind of caffeine at all. And I'm going to exit out there real quick. And here's the discussion. I already discussed what the discussion is. And this is the visual vigilance, and then I also did other cognitive tests because they didn't really go too much into every little test in the discussion. So I decided to put most of the cognitive tests onto one, except for the visual vigilance, because it seemed like they went more into that. And then I put the conclusion, and I decided not to put a page number on this one just because I felt that I can get a conclusion just out of the study. I'm sure you can do that, or you can just summarize what the conclusion was on that. I probably should put a page number on this. Like I said, my PowerPoint isn't perfect. And that is how you do the second tier of this research competition. I hope I helped you out a little bit, and I hope you have a great day.